It's incredibly timely that we're talking about how we revive a manufacturing sector and how we create jobs. I had a town hall with my constituents back in Sacramento County last night, a telephone town hall, and in that I heard from a number of folks that are consistently looking for jobs. I heard from one young veteran who returned. All she wants is to find a job. She's not asking for unemployment benefits or anything. She just wants to find a job. I also heard from a desperate couple that's been out of work for 2 years, and they are incredibly worried about unemployment benefits being cut off, but they're not asking for an extension. They need that extension, but they want a job. They've been looking for jobs. Now, Dr. Aubrecht, you touched on part of our challenge, the skills mismatch. There are plenty of jobs out there, but our workforce, our graduates are not trained to meet those jobs. So we do have to double the effort to make sure we're addressing that skills mismatch. Another challenge is, maybe Mr. Davis touched on this, or all of you have touched on it, is inconsistent federal policy. I mean, we've not defined what our goal is, how we're going to make those investments, what kind of a regulatory framework we're going to do, so we can create those jobs, so we can make those investments, so our kids, our graduates are able to fill those needs. In addition, we have seen dramatic reductions on our investment in R&D, and that creates another challenge for us. And then Mr. Lipinski touched on this issue of technology transfer, how we quickly get these ideas, out of our academic institutions and out of R&D into, industry, so we can commoditize them and grow industries. That said, we do have some assets and some natural advantages. I think, Dr. Veuger, you touched on this energy renaissance that is coming. That will make our manufacturing base much more competitive. Dr. Biller, you touched on, I think that the term you used was make it where you sell. And as I've been talking to some international multinationals, they are considering locating their manufacturing sector here in the United States because the advantages that they have in lower costs of labor, we're about to potentially outweigh those advantages given they're selling to our market. If they build it here, they don't have the cost of transport, and we have much lower energy costs, plus we do have the rule of law and so forth here. So there are some advantages there. We're still the most innovative economy. I haven't asked a question yet, but on that sector of investment in R&D and on technology transfer, coming out of an academic background myself, and any of you can answer this question, what can we do to allow industry to partner much more closely with our academic institutions to make it easier to take those ideas to market as quickly as possible? Maybe Dr. Aubrecht.
So yeah, one of my other involvements, I'm a trustee at Cornell. I've been a trustee there for about 25 years, and one of my primary interests there has been technology transfer. And I've looked at models elsewhere around. Some of my other trustee colleagues have looked at models elsewhere around the country. There was an experiment that was run in the California university system about 10 years ago. Berkeley lives in the same neighborhood as Stanford. Stanford had a tremendous amount of industry-sponsored research. Berkeley had relatively little, and it all had to do with licensing. And what Berkeley did was to run an experiment and allow the researchers to do a royalty-free, non-exclusive licenses. And as a result of that, in a relatively short time period, Berkeley went from under $10 million to over $100 million a year in industry-sponsored research. And it seems to me that's the same sort of model. There's places where that doesn't work. If you think about medical research for drugs, a drug company is going to want to have an exclusive license, otherwise they aren't going to put $1 billion into developing the drug. But for a lot of other things, what they found is they put together industry consortia. We are currently partnering with about 6 universities that have industry-sponsored consortia. And a lot of those, it's royalty-free, non-exclusive licenses. It's a pre-competitive sort of research that ends up going on. And if you look at the research that the federal government sponsors coming out of the NSF or NIH or whatever, it seems to me that more of that ought to be done with royalty-free, non-exclusive licenses. What happens is researchers get together, the engineers are talking to each other. That's great. They can see the problem, they get it defined, and then they spend a year and a half with the attorneys trying to work out a contract. This is nuts.
Right.
So do it royalty-free, non-exclusive, wherever possible. And it seems to me you could roll that into the legislation for NSF and NIH to say we want royalty-free, non-exclusive licenses. We want the scientists and engineers talking to each other, not the attorneys.
Great. Sounds great.